Hello, bot builders. Good morning, or good afternoon, or good afternoon, or good evening, depending on what time it is for you in the world where you are. I hope you're all having a wonderful day. My name is Robert. Welcome to the Botpress Basics Office Hours. We'll chat for about 30 to 45 minutes today, as usual. If you're new here, welcome. I'm happy to have you. I'll let you know a little bit about how I typically run these streams, and then we'll dive right into the good stuff. So usually the way that I run these streams is I'll either go over new features or talk about what's new in the Botpress studio, or typically what I like to do is go over the previous week's worth of questions that you've all been asking on our Discord server. So any kind of questions that you have about bot building or Botpress or really whatever the case may be, and then answering some of those questions. And then, of course, the number one reason that we build bots together here on a live stream is so that you can ask me questions live, take advantage of this time. Please, I encourage you to ask your questions. There are no dumb questions here, of course. And don't worry about derailing me. Of course, the purpose of these streams is to be derailed. So I'm here to answer your questions if you've got any. Otherwise, if I can't answer your questions, we'll follow up with you later, etc., etc. So otherwise, I hope you're all having a wonderful day so far. We'll dive right into the studio as usual, and we'll pop in here. So the first thing I'm going to show all of you before all right, well, you can see the dashboard is in front of you, and that's all very nice. But I think the first thing I want to talk about today is integrations. So we've spent a lot of time rethinking the integration experience on Botpress, thinking about what kinds of integrations you want and how you all want to build and share integrations. So let's have a quick discussion about this. You'll remember a couple of weeks ago when we introduced the new dashboard. I'll dive into my workspace home, but the first thing that we talked about was talking about your integration, so this menu here. So the idea is we've made it easier to build your own integration, to share integrations with others. We're currently working on a way that I can't share with you yet, but to make it even easier to share integrations with other people, the ones that you've built, etc. So please look forward to that. That's what this menu is for. But if we dive right into the actual integrations that your bot owns, you can take a look that we now support versioning on integrations. This is a small change, but it's a very important one because what it means is if you're a developer of an integration, you can now push changes without making changes to previous versions of integrations that are published, etc. So this is all very nice. This is all very useful. We follow the typical versioning standard here, which is major, minor, patch number, etc. So that's great. That's wonderful. What I want to do today, though, is I'm actually not going to be working with integrations. I just wanted to show you this in case, really just to whet your appetite for integrations and maybe for building and sharing those. But the meat and potatoes of what I want to go over today is the vision agent. I want to show all of you something we pushed live last week, and something that we can play around with today and see how it works and see what it does and see how we can work with it, so on and so forth. So let's dive into our bot in the studio and go over here. Assistant API integrations. I wonder, Codigo Facilito, what do you mean? What are you looking to do with that? Let me just clear my bot here. What are you looking to do with the Assistant API that you can't currently do with either Botpress or our Chrome extension? When I use the Botpress template, the bot can't answer my questions. Does the assistant have its files uploaded? You'll have to upload them directly to your OpenAI assistant in order for your assistant to answer those questions. All right, now that we have a clean space here, let's dive into the vision agent. So maybe before I set up anything here, I'll leave the vision agent menu open. But what I want to do is I want to maybe give you some backstory about what this is, what this does, what it's for, so on and so forth. So you'll see that this is v0.1 of the vision agent. So it's a very first pass at allowing your bot to interact with things that are not text-based. So user inputs that are various media, in this case images, this is the first thing that we want to enable you to do. So this first version of this kind of media supported system is going to be images, and we'll play around with this today. This uses a mixture of OCR, optical character recognition, and AI to parse what an image is, and then essentially the kind of deliverable, the action item, the unit that you'll be working with as the bot builder is a description or transcription or both of what the image actually contains, what the image sees. So in other words, you're allowing your bot to see images. So let's take a gander here at how this works. So of course it's an agent. So I'll pop into my agent menu. I'll make sure that it's enabled. And then once it's enabled, I'll be able to see some items in my card tray that will allow me to do different things. So over here, if I navigate all the way down to my agents tab in the card tray, I can see I can extract a content from an image, which is a new card. It's a new item that we can do. Sith asks, Facebook Messenger general discussion about getting approved is reported frequently. So the thing about the Facebook Messenger integration is the approval process that you're talking about is on the Meta side. So I would encourage you, maybe Sith, to talk about other users who have successfully become a Meta verified business. We have no visibility over that stuff whatsoever. So that's not really it's not something that's in our control to tell you how to get your business verified on Meta. But it's an approval step that Meta sets up on their end to make sure that people don't take advantage of their business APIs, as it were. All right. So let's continue building. I will continue building on this kind of extract content from image card that I was working with at the beginning of this process. So what I'm going to say here is let's talk a bit about how this works, what we can do to set this up, and what it actually does. So you'll see here in the card settings on the right over here, it's asking us for an image URL. In other words, this is looking for an externally hosted image that the bot will then be able to parse and then tell you or tell itself or store somewhere what that image contains. So we have that, and then what it's going to do is parse that image and store that answer somewhere. Of course, it has to store that answer somewhere, otherwise you can't do anything with that information. So we'll store it in a variable, and in this case, I'll just create the variable and I'll call it parsed image, but of course you can call it whatever you like. I was mulling over today what example I wanted to show for today, and we could probably do a couple because why not? But I think an example that I was playing around with earlier that I thought was super instructive was actually using a receipt for this. I think that's probably a common use case that we might expect to see a bot work with is asking a user, for example, hey, can you take a photo of your receipt and send it over to me so I can take an action based on what I see there? So you'll see here I've already Googled photo of a receipt, but we can take a photo of a mock-up receipt and see what's going on there. So this is a great clear picture of a receipt, so I'm pretty sure it's gonna work very well. I'll copy the image address and then we'll dive into the studio again to take a look. Before I do this, we have a question. Integrate with learning softwares like Storyline to work as an assistant on e-learning courses. Wing-headed, interesting question. So I've got two possible answers to your question about integrating with a learning software like this. The first is, if the learning software in question that you're talking about exposes an API, depending on what information or tools or functionalities are exposed in that API, it's quite simple for a Botpress bot to make API calls to external services. So that's one way you can go about doing this. The other way is if the learning software that you're talking about building on supports the integration of a bot inside itself. What I mean by that is, like, if you were developing an app, for example, and you wanted to integrate a chatbot inside it, you can use our SDK for that. So popping a bot in there, those will require programming experience, that will require a developer. If you wanted the simplest iteration of this, or the simplest version of integrating with a learning software, you could just take a bot that you've built to answer questions, for example, or whatever flow you've determined is useful for you and your learners. Just have it sit on top of your course. So in other words, if the service you're talking about, Storyline or something else, allows you to place custom scripts on your courses, which I believe that they should, it's quite trivial to just take your bot that supports web chat and then just pop it on that website, as it were. So you could do that. And then if you were looking, you mentioned an assistant on e-learning courses, I would feed that bot knowledge from the course, either essentially the same course material that you've uploaded to your bot, whether it's through a PDF or through text files, or indeed through our website as well. So wing-headed, does that give you some ideas or some places to start investigating what your preferred method would be for that? All right. So one, I think, so we have this URL of this image of a receipt, and I'm not going to bury the lead anymore here. Let's just let's see what this thing does, and then we can hop onto it from there. I'll turn off knowledge answering on my start node, and maybe I'll call this extract image. All right, and of course, I'm going to send the variable workflow.parsedImage, which is just a string that contains the information that has been extracted from this receipt. So let's take a gander. I'll say hi. What do we expect to happen? You'll see that was very fast. That was because I had done this previously, so the caching should have kicked in there, and of course it did. We can see here my cache savings are at 58%. So if you didn't understand a word that I just said, that's okay. We'll dive right in from the beginning. But for those of you who are Botpress veterans, that's why that response was so quick. All right, so let's take a look at what my bot was able to parse from this image of a receipt. So we see here immediately we've got two items, two forms of response. We've got actually the transcription of the items on the receipt, and then we've also got an editorialized, you might say, narrative description of what the receipt actually contains. So we've got a description that's generated that's telling you what the image looks like, and then we've got a text, a transcript telling you what text was actually written on the image. So we have, for example, the bot is telling us what it sees, and then it's also giving us a transcription that we can save for later. This is particularly useful for cases like this, where let's say I was saving this to a variable and maybe I had a database full of receipts or images of receipts that users were uploading to my bot, and I could take actions based on, for example, the amount. One thing maybe we could do a test together, although I'm not sure if this will work, but I might even try to use like an AI task to extract just the amount value from all of these receipts, and then see if I can maybe do some math on that later on in another service. Maybe that's like a stretch goal that we'll set up for ourselves for later, but that sounds fun. Wing-headed, I'm sorry your connection broke. I gave quite a lengthy answer about ways to integrate Botpress with a software like a learning service. I'm probably not going to repeat that just for the sake of the people who are here, but we do record these and put them on YouTube later on, so you'll be able to see this like either by the end of the day today or perhaps even early tomorrow morning. So stay tuned to our YouTube channel for that. All right, so let's dive in. Let's actually try that now. Let's set up a nice little AI task and see if we can't get it to extract the amount. So in the AI task, here, let's set this up together. I'll say extract the numerical value for the total amount spent on this receipt. And of course, the input, the beautiful thing about this is the input is just going to be that same variable that stores the string for that parsed image, so the text and the description of this image. So in theory, all of this should work properly, but of course, theory and practice are two different things in life. So I'll save this to a number, I'll call this amount, and maybe I'll even say save it to the variable workflow.amount. All right, and of course, we'll save that here. We'll make sure that everything is set up. And let's try that again one more time. So I'll say hi. And there we go. So let's take a look at this. I'm happy that this worked on the first try. Sometimes things in life don't work on the first try, as I'm sure you're all very familiar with, of course. But if we take a look at the amount value, and maybe I'll open up the logs as well, we see that the AI task is working. And so this is the line in our logs that's showing the AI task, and it's saving result is amount 84.80. So actually, this is quite nice. And then, for example, if I wanted to save all of those in a table, actually, why don't I can show that to you as well, how I would save all of those amounts to a table. Earlier, just now, I was talking about caching. Let's talk about what that is, and then I'll show you how to do this example. If we hop down to our AI task, and then we go scroll a bit further and we see how many tokens were billed, we see that my cache savings are showing at 72%. What does this mean? So in other words, when you're using AI-supported services like parsing an image, for example, or making knowledge base queries, and you are expecting to do the same request multiple times. For example, two users are asking the exact same question to your bot, and your bot is expected to give the exact same answer to both of those questions or very similar answers. There's no need, as a business owner, you have a vested interest in your bot not doing the same task twice to arrive at the same conclusion. So we store on the Botpress side in a temporary cache the answers to questions, so that if there's a hit on that cache again, which we search before we send your questions, your queries over to the LLM, we save you that token cost, and we actually show you how much you've saved. So in other words, the cache saving here was 72%, or in other words, if we didn't cache that request, the request would have been 72% more expensive. So just a nice little bonus for using Botpress there, which makes me happy to see. I love to see it. All right, let's talk about the thing that I was going to do, which was once we've taken out the amount, maybe I want to save them to a table. So I'll call this table transactions. And I'll take a sip of water. What do I need to do to use the cache? You don't need to enable anything. It's enabled by default. It's right there for you. You don't have to lift a finger. It comes default. It's not paywalled or anything. It comes default on all Botpress bots. Matt Pendle asks, how can the user send the image or image link to the bot? Okay, great question. You know what? Before I show you this business about the table, maybe I'll address Matt Pendle's question, and I'll talk about how the user would actually send the image. So in the example that I showed you here, I passed the image URL. Remember, this is an externally hosted image somewhere out there on the internet that the bot can publicly access. This is an externally hosted image that I passed the URL directly to this card. If we don't want to do that, let's say, of course, my bot doesn't have every image URL all the time. There's a simple way to pass a URL here. In other words, you guessed it probably, this supports a variable. So here, as a string, I'm just going to save a variable called image link, and I'll pass it through to this card. So I'll say workflow.image link, and over here, that means, of course, that we have to ask our user for the image link. So I can say something here like, please provide me a URL for a publicly accessible, externally hosted image. And I'll save that, of course, to the variable image link, and then that gets passed through to the agent here, and then all of the business continues on as normal. One thing I will note is that a lot of the question here is many people are expecting to receive images on places like WhatsApp. In that case, of course, on WhatsApp, since you can send an image directly, it supports file upload on its own. There's no need to pass an externally hosted URL. The bot will sense that the WhatsApp payload or the WhatsApp data that it's received is a media type image. For more information on this, I would encourage you, if you're a WhatsApp developer, I would encourage you to take a look at our documentation on the WhatsApp media section. There was a great conversation on this on the help channel the other day, and then also it's right there in the documentation about how to tell your WhatsApp bot to pay attention to what media type response it's received. But if you're doing all of this on web chat, which I believe a lot of you are, this is how I would do it. So you would ask for that image link, find that image link, and then just pass it through to your vision agent on behind the scenes. DYZ asks, how do I get a choice skill button to redirect a user to a specific URL? Any workarounds besides using a card? DYZ, when you say choice skill, it's giving V12. Are you asking for a development on V12, or are you building on the cloud on the browser-based studio? Could we upload images to the web chat one day? There are technical limitations about why that's not currently possible, so that's why you kind of have like a V1 to work with at the moment. I'm not going to say no, Matt Pendle. But like eventually, right? It's not currently in the current iteration of the feature, but that is the plan one day. So you want to know, how do I get a single or multiple choice? So let's just say I pop a single choice card here. I'll turn off knowledge answering. And let's say I get like option 1 and option 2. you want to redirect a user to a specific URL without sending a card. So, do these support Markdown? That's a good question. DYZ, I'm not actually sure that I have an elegant solution to your question. So, because what you want to happen is you want them to click here. Here, I'll show you an example. So we're on the same page. But you want them to click one of these options and then, and then save them to transfer them to external URL. Interesting. I mean, the closest thing, you've already send custom event, do it on the website. Decay, what do you mean by this? In the meantime, Carolyn asks, what image, for the vision agent, what image formats are supported? Is there a size limit? These are excellent questions. I don't actually know off the top of my head. I'm going to say the typical image formats are supported, JPEG, PNG, etc. I would be curious to know if other image formats are not supported. Is a good question. As for size limit, I'm going to say there probably isn't. I don't know. I can't comment on the size limit, but I would say that it's likely that the larger your image is, the higher the AI spend will be for this. So I would say you probably have a vested interest in using like smaller images. But of course, I'm not actually sure about that. Would be worth testing together. Okay. I need to knock out this table example because it's like sticking in my head now. I need to know. So here, let's try this one more time. So I have transactions table. Maybe I'll just save this to, I don't know, dollar. And this will be of type number. And so I just want the dollar value for all these transactions. Of course, we'll use an insert record card in the transactions table, the dollar value, and we'll save this. The value will be the variable workflow.amount. I'm curious now to see if this will work. All right, here. I'll say hi. Oh, I need my, where's my URL? Yes. All right, there we go. So it's parsing my URL. The AI task was completed and the conversation ended. It doesn't look like that worked. Why didn't that work? Let's take a gander. Failed to extract images from images using GPT. I wonder, why didn't this work? So I see the values are here. All right, let me try this one more time. While I'm waiting for this to I don't know, while I'm troubleshooting this, one thing I also wanted to show off is on the emulator, your bot now shows you when it's thinking. So for example, while that was parsing, actually maybe I can try that with a different one so we can see together. But while that was parsing, this entry field it'll glow blue, so you can see that your bot is actually doing something. It's not just waiting around. Yeah, right. So that one worked. So there's a problem with the other one. Here, let's try a Walmart receipt. No, I want to try something that has a dollar value. Does that work? Yeah, that one's fine. All right, let's try a different one. And this way we'll get a better view of that thinking state. All right, so I say hi. And it's parsing. And I know that it's parsing because this is glowing blue. Look at that. Let's let it think. And so this is slightly different because the text is laid out differently, but we see that it's still saving the total amount tendered, which is 2612. So that workflow variable, workflow.amount, still has a value, and we can navigate over to the transactions table, and we see that it's saved there correctly. Actually, this is pretty nice. This might be like an interesting way to think about like storing expenses, for example, if you wanted to just quickly upload a receipt and shoot it onto the cloud, for example. That may be a fun little use case. Interesting conversation happening in chat. Send a custom event to the website. The website can open a new tab. The only way to open a new tab directly in Botpress is by the user clicking a link. Yeah, that's right. Thank you, Decay, as always. Okay, here, let's together. Actually, you know what? I did. All right, so anyways, all of this to say that the long and the short of this is that's the Vision agent. You can access it. You should all have access to this from the agents menu. You can enable it here. You can play around with it. This image was, you know what? That was receipts, but let's see what else we can do. What if I do like photo of a funny penguin? Let's see what else it can do with stuff that doesn't have any text on it, but is still, you know, it's still pretty cute. Here, I'll navigate back here just for funsies. And there's going to be no amount here, of course. But what if I say hi? I want to see what it does with these penguins. The bot is thinking. We have a description. Fantastic. So this is, of course, just GPT telling me what it sees in the image. So this is pretty straightforward. But I think something that might be interesting is like if you were to use an AI task, for example, to extract the subject matter. So if I wanted to reverse engineer this, if I wanted to know what this image was about, of course, that answer is just penguins. Maybe I could save all of that in a table and then have information about like what kinds of images are my users uploading? Is it primarily animals or whatever the case may be? So that's pretty neat. I'm glad to know that this works as expected. But all right, so as I promised earlier, there is one feature that I'm quite excited about that I'm looking forward to sharing with all of you. This next feature that I'm about to show you is not generally available, so most of you will not have access to this yet. But I'll break my own rule and I'll just share it with you. I'm happy about this, and it's something I know a lot of you have been asking for anyways. And that is, of course, bot versions. So you can see here that I've been publishing a lot of bots on the 22nd and the 23rd of April, which is yesterday and today. You might be asking yourself, what are bot versions? Let's talk about it. So typically, people are expecting, when you build a bot, one thing that you want to be able to do is say, all right, the bot works in this state. I know that it works. I want to make changes to my bot and test them out, but I don't want to lose this previous version. Currently, the workflow for that would just be exporting the bot as a .bpz file and just saving those somewhere. That's fine, but it's not the most elegant workflow, so we'd like to be able to handle that for you. So here, in an upcoming feature, again, this is not available to all of you yet, but in an upcoming feature, you'll be able to save those versions on your own. So how does this work? Every time that you hit publish, so every time you make a new version of a bot live, you will automatically create a new version of a bot. So a new one will be saved here. And you can go ahead and edit some of those details later. You can also manually create them. So maybe you don't want to publish any changes, but you want to manually create a version. I can just create a new version here. And I'll just say something like new empty slate. And I'll call it empty. And so we save it there. And then once you open it here, you can also restore from a previous version. And you can also see the description of what those previous versions are. So the ones that are automatically created just have a date and time, but the ones that you create manually or go in and edit yourself later, you'll be able to see information. This is really great for like, let's say you work as part of a team and you make some changes and you want to document those changes. You could just document all of them directly in Botpress. So you don't have to write down like an email telling your colleague or collaborator like, hey, I made these changes. This new version includes this. You can just pop those over here in version management. So I'm really excited to support versioning. I'm really excited to roll all of this out to all of you guys at some point in the future. But I do hope that this whets your appetite for that. Codigo Facilito asks, does the Botpress template allow me to integrate it with Assistant API that contains files? You should be able to perform knowledge retrieval using the Assistant API, I believe. But Codigo Facilito, I will say that the person who built the Chrome extension that you're talking about, the template in question, is Patrick. He live streams on Thursdays at 11 a.m. Eastern. So you might find it helpful or instructive to also ask him your questions. He's live in just 2 days. Unrelated basic question of time. According to Discord, you can put a summary against a KB to help it be more accurate. I can name bind, but can't see where to put the description. Rob, you ask a good question. So the short answer is that we deprecated the knowledge-based summary feature because we found that it was causing more problems than doing good. So currently, that would have been in the old interface. You would have opened up your knowledge base and popped a description of it here. We don't currently do that anymore because in theory, all of the context should exist in the document itself. In other words, if you're running into a problem where a knowledge base is not functioning as expected, there are different ways to address that problem that are not adding a description of a knowledge base. Does that answer? You are not going mad. No. There's no madness on the server. I will say Discord's been around our server's been around for a while. And lots of people have lots of conversations, but also the product updates very frequently. So it's very possible that sometimes you're looking at an older version of a conversation that reflects an older version of the product. It's just the nature of moving quickly. There are so many people building on Botpress that a lot of moving parts moving in unison. Sometimes it doesn't answer what, but answers what, same question. I mean, that's LLMs, right? LLMs will just, as the fickle beasts they are, not unlike humans in that way. All right, so that's versioning. Last week we talked about schemas. I don't think I have anything brand new to show anyone else here, which is great, besides the vision agent. I see some people typing, but I want to encourage any of you, if you have any questions, now is a great time to ask them because I've got a couple more minutes with all of you. So please use me as needed. Any template for V2 of the Assistance API? Yes, I did see that the V2 Assistant API is now released. Ramon, I will say that the person who built that is Patrick. He live streams on Thursdays. So if he's got plans for those, I'm sure he'll be more than happy to tell you about it on Thursday. But in theory, I know exactly what you're referring to. So that template, Code to Go Facilito, that is my colleague Patrick that built that. It just leverages the Assistant API. I will say though that using the Assistant API is nice. I would love all of you to get to a place where you didn't feel like you had to use that. In theory, most of the functionalities of the Assistant API should be available in Botpress, particularly now with the addition of the vision agent. We can now support media like images. So I would love to get to a point where, like, if you didn't want to use the vision agent, you didn't have, or the Assistant API, you didn't have to. You could just build a Botpress bot completely on your own. That's kind of like that's the dream. But I know a lot of you like the Assistant API, so. Hey, more power to you. Is there a somewhat official solution to prevent fake non-existing links from being provided to the user? Sith, under what circumstances are those is that happening? What do you mean by this? Who is your bot creating links? Creating fake non-existent links? A client has increased AI spend limit for this month. I'm not able to reduce it. Presumably they can't reduce it next month back to $5. If you've already gone over the limit, you won't be able to reduce it back down. But once the cap rolls over, like once the spend has rolled over to the next month, you should be able to reduce it back down. But of course, if you reach the limit of AI spend, your bot will stop working. So just something to keep in mind. Assistant API v2 uses less tokens than Botpress. There are things that we do behind the scenes to make requests like safer, for example. So I think a question we receive often is, hey, I received different answers to this question on the Assistant API or like on asking ChatGPT. And that's a totally fair thing to say because sometimes you will receive different responses, but we are in the business of providing chatbots to businesses who don't want to end up in the news. So there are things that we do on the back end to make sure that like we prevent hallucinations or we are more confident that we're providing correct answers. And the trade-off there is, of course, that sometimes the token usage maybe is a bit higher or the confidence threshold is also higher. Could images be part of the KB and mixed with text responses? Not currently, but like eventually, right? I think the idea here is allowing your knowledge bases to be multimodal would be nice. But in the first iteration of the vision agent, that's not currently the case, Matt Pendle. But of course, we'd like to move to a place where like your knowledge bases can be multimodal. That would be great. Navigate back here. I wonder what else I could do with these dollar amounts being stored in this table. Much to think about. Actually, you know what? While I'm still here, I want to try this penguin example because I can't get it out of my head. Here, I want to see if it can extract in one word what the image is about. I think that's the penguin one. Parsed image. And then let me use an AI task for that. Extract in one word the topic of this image, of this input. Maybe I'll say main topic. And save it to a variable called workflow.topic. And I'll just save that here. I already managed to show images in a response. Not sure how. Wait, what? Matt, I would love to see how you set that up. Here. This one is a parsed image, and this one will be workflow.topic. All right, let's see if that works. Hey, look at that! Penguins. Oh, that's fantastic. Context inconsistently, despite being provided raw answer and being instructed to not use a link that does exist in KB, it will make something up. Sith, so you're saying that in generating your bot will sometimes hallucinate a slug at the end of your domain, your root domain? Yes, I had images in a PDF and they showed with no image card. That's wonderfully interesting. The answers we put in, train the GPT OpenAI right. To prevent this, i.e. private LLM, do we need an enterprise sub, Botpress v12? They don't, I mean, the answers we put in train OpenAI. I don't know what OpenAI does, so I'm not going to comment on what they do. But if what you're looking for is running LLMs on-prem, that was available on Botpress v12. It still is available on Botpress v12, but we are no longer updating v12 at the moment. So if you're looking for an on-premises deployment, right, in other words, a private LLM, you would use v12 for that. Cloud is Botpress Studio, the one we have in front of us, the Botpress Cloud, is an entirely managed service. What I will say is if you are an enterprise looking to sign like a big enterprise contract, we would be happy to talk to you about a private deployment through our sales team. So if you're like a serious enterprise buyer and you're looking for an on-prem deployment or a hybrid deployment, I would say do consider just reaching out to our sales team. The other thing I'll say is like Botpress Cloud is GDPR and SOC 2 compliant. So if there are privacy concerns, I would say that we could probably address those as well. So maybe an on-prem deployment is not necessarily the solution you need. It might just be the one that you hear when you Google. Yeah, like for law firm clients, for example, I think a lot of the clients that we have on or like leads or prospective clients on Botpress Cloud are like banks, for instance, and of course banks deal with sensitive information. We're moving towards a model where maybe you don't need the private deployment in order to be security compliant. So it's just a question of what your clients are looking for, what you're willing to educate them on, etc. Yeah, no problem, Rob. It's a logical assumption, but technically incorrect. For example, it will be something like /program, and then what it should be is /program details. Okay, I wonder if that's the case, then it might be worth storing URLs in a table. And if there's a hit on like an entry in that table, it'll spit out a specific URL. Just because it sounds like you're talking about like a form of structured data where everything needs to be accurate. Because it just sounds like your LLM is maybe hallucinating a response that should be there but isn't. All right, we have a couple of minutes left, so I'm going to either start wrapping up or answering the last of your questions. So if you have any other questions, speak now or forever hold your bot building peace. Just as I'm wrapping up here, I wanted to say that my AI task did successfully note that the image that it sent was about penguins. And now I'm like, I feel mad with power, and I wonder what I could possibly do with this information. As usual, Decay is doing a much more rigorous job over there in the chat. So Decay, thank you for all that you do. I am going to wrap up today's stream here. Thank you all for dropping by. If you're watching this on YouTube, come to Discord sometime. We have a great time. You can ask me questions live. Decay might give you some code. Who knows? Otherwise, I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your weeks. I hope that you all find that the bot building projects of your dreams and that all of your bots work and there are no more bugs in the future. Otherwise, I hope that you all have a great week, and I'll see you all next week. Bye, everyone. Happy bot building.